Hey everybody, as promised, I want to speak to this situation about the springtime slump or the end of year panic, as I like to call it sometimes. If you're following a traditional school schedule in your school year, meaning you like to start your year around August or so and finish up towards May, early June, then you might be like some of the moms who have reached out to me recently and asked, oh no, what do? We feel like we're not going to finish in time, or we feel like we're a few weeks behind, or we're losing motivation. What do we do now to power through? It seems like we were doing so well earlier in the year and now it's just gone. Okay, first things first, I want to encourage you. This is normal, okay? Not just normal for homeschoolers. Think back to when you were in school, and pretty much after spring break, go ahead and ask any teacher you know. It hits hard. People are ready. The teachers are ready. The students are ready. Everyone's ready to put a bow on this thing and wrap it up. So if you're at the point right now in mid-April where you started homeschooling this grade level back in August or September, you're probably feeling that same slump that the public school and traditional private school kids are also feeling as well. The difference is that when your child is in traditional school and they begin feeling the slump, you have no control over it really. All you can do as the parent is just try to help them navigate their emotions. With homeschooling, there's a pro and a con here. The con is that not only do you need to help them manage their feelings, your children, but you have to manage yours as well. But the pro is that unlike in traditional school where you really have no control over their workload, their homework levels, things like that, that's all up to the teachers and the schools, you do have control over how you handle it now. As a homeschooling parent, you get to gauge where everybody's at and adjust course accordingly. This is a beautiful thing. So first, now you know it's normal. Yes, everybody feels the slump at some point or another. For me, we don't actually school on a traditional school calendar. So for us, it usually hits at a different time of year. But right now, my kids are on different schedules from one another. So I do have one who is towards the end of his grade level right now, and I can tell he's kind of maxing out on that grade level. So we're adjusting course right now to help keep it from dragging out and, burning out. You don't want your kids to burn out. You don't want yourself to burn out to where you spend all summer dreading getting back up and going with the next grade level, right? You want to end on a high note, on a positive note. So let's talk about ways to do that. So now that you know that it is normal to feel this way, both for you and your kid, I want to remind you of a key from my ebook, if you read that. Remember, you're driving this bus of your homeschool. So you get to make decisions about where this thing goes and doesn't go that may or may not look different from the traditional schools. You need to be comfortable in that position that you hold, that you're not gauging all of your success by what the schools are or are not doing, okay? Some of your decisions may look like theirs and some of them may not. It's okay because you're in the driver's seat. Moving to the next reminder, I want to remind you that you don't have to finish all of your curriculum. Now, hang with me here. I'm going to go places. First of all, I know that stress that we put on ourselves, that pressure of, I paid money for this curriculum. I want to use it. I want to wring all the goodness out of it. I want to get everything I can out of it. I get that. But remember the curriculum buffet. And if you haven't watched that video, when this one's over, maybe head over and check that one out. It's a very short video on my YouTube channel. The curriculum buffet. The essence of it is this. When you go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, you are not paying to be able to eat everything there. You are paying for access to be able to pick and choose everything there. Now, technically, yes, it's all you can eat. You could go in and try to eat all of it, but that's not healthy, nor is it wise, right? It's just going to backfire and make you feel really, really sick. So instead of going into it with, I've got to get my money's worth, instead of that, let's look at it as when you and I walk into a buffet, we may both pay $15 for access to that buffet, We're probably going to eat different things and different quantities. But the point is that we're paying to be able to access what will give us a satisfying, hopefully nutritious meal. Look at your curriculum that way as well. I know you have invested a lot into it, but don't wear yourself and your children out thinking that you have to partake of every single element that's there. You have paid for access to have all the tools you need to provide them an adequate, and not just adequate, excellent education for this school year. Get what you need out of it. And when you leave this grade level behind, don't be like the one walking out of the buffet of, oh, I wish I could have eaten more. That's not the point. The value is in the quality of the education you give your child, not in the quantity of information that you consume. With that in mind, you can take off that pressure of, what if we don't finish the book? And I will remind you, even though, like I said, we don't gauge many of our decisions against what the schools do, I will remind you that, at least for me, and I would imagine it was probably like this for you growing up, in the schools, we almost never finished the textbook in the school year. We would get within a couple of chapters of the end and the school year was over and we were done. So it really wasn't about finishing the textbook. So let that take a little of the pressure off of you as well. And then along with that, here's another thought. If you're using curriculum like the one we've chosen to use, BJU Press, these curriculum writers are very thorough. And when they write second grade math and then write third grade math, they include overlap from the end of the second grade book and the beginning of the third grade book. So there is some overlap there to where if you didn't finish everything, especially for math and English, if you didn't finish everything in that book, say in second grade, you're going to have the opportunity to hit those things at the beginning of third grade. So if you're maxing out now, instead of pushing the envelope and maxing everybody past what they have capacity to retain and do school-wise, what if you just tie that bow on it a little bit early? Maybe we skip the last couple chapters of the book and we're okay with that because we know once we have refreshed ourselves and had our summer break or whatever your case may be, and we gear back up for third grade, we're going to come into it with so much more energy and motivation and a fresh outlook that actually our children will be able to retain this information better in August than if we try to force the situation right now in April. That's been an approach that I've taken many years, adjusting it to our calendar, of course, which, like I said, is non-traditional. But I have taken that approach and I have never once regretted it. Now, perhaps you're like one mom that contacted me and said, well, we're 3 weeks behind on our coursework. Okay, first of all, just a gentle reminder, who says you're behind? Whose calendar are you trying to fit? Unless you're using some sort of online curriculum that's about to expire, then a lot of the time frames that you put on yourself can be superficial. They can be arbitrary. Make sure that you're not enforcing time frames on yourself that could be loosened up, okay? Maybe instead of just wrapping it up and not doing those chapters, maybe you do want to go ahead and cover that coursework, but why are you putting the pressure on yourself to finish by a certain deadline? Is that deadline really necessary? And only you can evaluate and answer that for yourself and for your particular situation. But I would encourage you that if you're feeling the crunch of the time, let the time frame be a little looser. That's okay. You can go on into mid-June or even to the end of June if you had to. And guess what? You don't have to start back up in August if you don't want to. You get to decide what time frame is appropriate for you and for your kids. So if you feel that you're a few weeks behind in your coursework, don't let that be a stressor for you. The other thing is, like I said to this mom, it's actually pretty easy to make up a few weeks of work. You can fast track some things and move things ahead a little bit quicker than normal and be able to make up that ground faster than you think. What are some ways to do that? Well, I do have another video already on YouTube about fast tracking and some strategies for that. But one thing, I mentioned that my one son is coming up on the end of his grade level. He's coming up on the end of ninth grade, and he's kind of maxing out. The only subject that he has anything remaining on right now is cultural geography. And it literally covers geography and some historical components of different continents and countries around the world. So it's a lot of content, and he has kind of reached capacity to an extent. However, I don't want him to just throw away the last 5 chapters. I feel like the information is valuable. So we're fast tracking a bit. One of the things I already do to fast track history, because for me, and this could be different for you, that's totally fine, but for my priorities in educating my children, I want them exposed to history. I want them to read the stories, hear the stories, know about what happened. I'm not as concerned about whether or not they commit every detail to memory like we used to have to do for tests in school. And I guarantee you that as soon as that test was over, I forgot the date of when that battle happened, and I forgot the words of that general's speech, and I forgot all of it. It really didn't serve the purpose other than for me to be able to remember when I hear about those events, oh yeah, I remember reading about that in history. So for me, I've decided that I want my children to learn about it. I want them to read and study these stories, but I don't want them doing what I consider busy work, committing all these details to memory. So I already fast track history. I only buy the textbook and the tests. And then I let them basically just read the chapters and do some open book tests. So looking at he's done really well with that during this course. And so I've decided to let him fast track even further for the rest of the chapters. I'm not going to make him read every single component throughout the chapter. There are things that we're going to skip, and then he's going to do those tests open book. And I feel like that's going to give him enough of an awareness that he's equipped. He's equipped to move on, and we're not going to feel like we lost out. So again, there are a lot of ways to fast track and kind of move on a little bit quicker than what you've been doing so far. So check out that other video as well if you think that would be something helpful. I hope that even just discussing these things so far has taken a lot of that pressure off of you. Because here's the other thing, which I teach in my course for new homeschooling parents, Homeschool Crash Course. Don't forget the human factor. That yes, on paper, it may look good to say we're going to plow through and we're going to get all of this stuff done. But there is the human morale that has to be tended to. And when your kid starts to max out, or when you start to max out, that's not always the time to push, the pedal to the metal and go for it. Sometimes that's a good time to change up the routine, take some afternoons and go get ice cream, or go to the park, or go do something out of the box, out of the books, literally, and do something a little bit different to help boost everybody's morale. Remember that morale is going to go a long way towards your longevity in homeschool, as well as for your kids' longevity. And I'll just leave you with this one last thought along those lines. If it is you that's maxing out and not your kid, don't feel guilty about that, especially if you're new to homeschooling, but really even if you're a veteran homeschooler. But you have taken on a huge responsibility. It's a huge privilege, of course, but there's a lot to it. And you have worked really hard this year to get your rhythm, to find what works. You've probably found some things that don't work. And it's okay if you're the one that needs the break. Go ahead and give yourself the grace and the space to breathe and to be able to just get refreshed and contemplate your next steps. There's nothing wrong with that. If there's any specific question that I can address for you, don't hesitate to drop it in the comments below. If this video has been helpful to you, please like and subscribe and share it with someone else that you know who might find value in it. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you soon.